911, where's your emergency?
I need a missing persons report.
Okay. Who's missing?
Tami Reay. Foul play could be suspected here.
When detectives responded to this 911 call, they had no idea how twisted this missing report would soon become. On February 8, 2006, the mere disappearance of a 41-year-old woman named Tami Reay turned into the most chilling murder mystery involving secret relationships.
I love you very, very much. You might but I don't know. We'll have to be careful.
What's happened to her?
No, that's what we're checking.
Did you guys find something?
Yeah. We found blood running off the running board, dripping onto the concrete. Do you know how it got there?
No.
Okay.
Several pieces of evidence found in the investigation would entangle the detectives more and more with multiple suspects.
The obvious question is, do we really have the right guy? Between Brian and Brad, one person is trying to frame another person.
But a shocking twist hit the detectives when they received an anonymous letter exposing crucial details about the real killer.
As we read the letter and go through it more, we realized something wasn't right.
While trying to figure out who wrote them a letter, another twist would turn the investigation upside down when detectives met a twin of one of the suspects.
All this evidence points at me, but I'm hoping that the body is found because there'll be something to set me free.
So without wasting any time, let's get straight to the mystery. So make sure to subscribe to the channel right away, and let's get into the full story behind the crime as we trace it back to where it all started. A few months had passed since Brad and Tami Reay and their 11-year-old Haylee moved to Pierce City, South Dakota. However, a scary nightmare followed the family before they could feel safe. On February 8, 2006, Haylee woke up and searched for her mother, Tami. Despite the presence of Tami's cell phone and purse in the house, she was mysteriously missing. Haylee attended school believing her mother would be back shortly, but an unforgiving truth was about to unfold, shattering the lives of everyone connected to Tami. At approximately 10:30 a.m. that very morning, the Pierre Police Department received a call from a Kmart store.
Your name, please?
I'm Brian Clark.
Who's missing?
Tami Reay.
Spell the last name?
Reay. Foul play could be suspected here.
Okay, and why do you think that, sir?
Hopefully this is discreet, but me and her have been having an affair. Apparently her husband has found out about it.
Okay, what is his name?
Brad. Reay. Reay.
Would you like to come out to the police station and file that report?
Brian Clark, the assistant manager at the Kmart store where Tami worked, reported her missing. When Brian entered the station to file his report, he unleashed a shocking revelation that would completely alter the course of the investigation. Brian was more than just a colleague with worries. In reality, he and Tami were entangled in a secret romance. In August 2004, when Brad and Tami relocated to Pierce City from Billings, Montana, Brad poured his heart and soul into his new role as the manager of a Walmart store. However, as his relentless dedication to work intensified, it exacted a significant toll. Confronting the harsh reality of abandoning their calm existence for an abandoned town, Haylee found herself fatherless, while Tami faced the void of losing her husband. Amidst her struggles with isolation, Tami found employment in the shoe department of a nearby Kmart, where she crossed paths with Brian. Tami gradually began to form a connection with Brian, a man who was already married yet became entangled with her. Soon, their friendship evolved into a profound romantic connection as events unfolded in unexpected ways. Brian admitted to the detectives that he and Tami had shared a close relationship for several months, a disclosure that deepened the mystery surrounding her disappearance. This was more than a simple disappearance. It marked the start of a complex narrative filled with deception, betrayal, and hidden longings that were destined to emerge from the shadows. The timing of Brian's 911 call just 30 minutes after Tami was supposed to report for her shift at the store raised immediate red flags about his involvement. According to Brian's concerns, Tami admitted to her husband Brad that she had been cheating. Law enforcement responded to the intel and confronted Brad inside the Walmart. When questioned about his wife's location, Brad claimed he had no idea that Tami was gone. Brad willingly assisted the officers, allowing them to search his home for a brief welfare check.
They found Brad working that morning to question him about where Tami might be. Law enforcement described Brad as pretty shocked and surprised to see them there.
Brad was cooperative, claimed he had no idea where she was, that she had left the night before. The officers said, well, let's go down to your house and do a welfare check.
He gives consent to go with them to the house and look through the house. We walk inside the garage and we see a black Durango, which is Tami's vehicle, inside the garage.
And then he saw something disturbing.
Unnoticed to them, events were about to spiral into a shocking twist as officers conducted a swift search of Brad's residence.
The dynamics are strange because Brad gave consent to look through the house, but the individual that gives you that consent can withdraw it at any time. So we stop our searching and we back out and then apply for a search warrant.
Now we're searching for Tami or her body. But they obviously decided they needed a full interview with Brad, and so they asked him if he would come down to the police department for an interview.
A chilling scene awaited them in the garage, where a black Durango stood ominously, blood seeping onto the floor from the vehicle's back door. As the door swung open, the detectives were immediately confronted by a strong scent reminiscent of a bleach-based cleaning product. The rear seats were marred by extensive bloodstains. Even with the apparent attempts to scrub away the evidence, the dark marks remained unmistakably present on the back seat. The investigation took a dark twist as the detectives uncovered this horrifying revelation. They quickly understood the necessity of obtaining an official search warrant, as Brad had only given them verbal permission to search his home, and he retained the authority to halt their actions at any moment. Unnoticed to Brad, the officers had already uncovered significant evidence in the garage, and he was brought in for a formal interrogation on February 11, 2006.
Have you hit anything with the vehicle lately?
No.
Have you ran over an animal with it?
No. Did you guys find something?
Yeah. We found blood running off the running board, dripping onto the concrete. And we're checking to see how that got there.
Brad was stunned by the discovery of blood in his garage, yet he appeared completely unaware of how it ended up there.
Let's assume that it is your wife's blood. How would that have got there? And how do you explain the very strong odor of a cleaning product?
Brad informed the officers that he returned home the night before at 10:30 p.m., only to discover that Tami was missing. In the stillness of the night, he witnessed Tami return home at around 1 a.m., accompanied by someone else. Tami left her Durango parked at home and got into her companion's vehicle with him. At this moment, I want to pause the story here to share an intriguing detail with you all. When Tami exited her Durango and entered her companion's vehicle, this revelation could prove crucial for the detectives. So keep this in mind as we continue with the unfolding events. Now, let's return to the story. Upon witnessing that, Brad mentioned he pursued them in Tami's vehicle, but partway through the journey, the car experienced a malfunction, forcing him to pull over by the roadside. At that moment, Brad recounted how a highway patrolman came up to him, leading to a conversation between them. After that, he made his way back home as Tami had already ventured far ahead and was out of reach.
So why didn't you take the Durango next truck?
The Durango's a lot faster. I mean, it's more maneuverable.
So you're planning on going on a high-speed pursuit here?
It's hard for me to believe that somehow blood miraculously got inside the vehicle that you were last driving.
So where did we have the argument?
Well, that's one of the unanswered questions, isn't it? I'm guessing inside your house.
So there'd be blood everywhere.
There might be.
In a gripping twist, as Brad recounted to the detectives, Tami chose to terminate her marriage with him after beginning a relationship with a colleague. Tami faced Brad, revealing her affair and demanding a divorce once Haylee's school year concluded. The officers interrogated Brad regarding the individual involved in Tami's affair, yet he insisted he did not know her lover.
What I'm being told is your wife had a boyfriend, you found out about it.
She told me about it.
She told you about it. Tell me about that. What'd she have to say?
That never crossed your mind? That's the first thing I'd be asking.
It crossed my mind, but
Why didn't you ask her?
I didn't want to know.
You didn't want to know?
Yeah, I got to believe that you're leaving out a lot of this conversation. Doesn't matter how laid back of a guy you are.
We've never fought ever.
You never fought ever.
And we've always treated each other with respect.
Brad, you know that she's dead.
No.
Where can I go find Tami right now and do the right thing?
You know, all this evidence points at me, but I'm hoping that the body is found because there'll be something to set me free.
Brad's claims were consistently suspicious during the questioning. Even though Brad didn't seem like the type to commit such a heinous act against his wife, investigators believed he had a compelling reason to act after Tami left him in such a callous manner.
Brad, we're going to arrest you right now for first-degree murder.
Even in the absence of concrete evidence, the officers took the decisive step to arrest Brad following the interrogation. Their apprehension stemmed from the possibility that, if set free, he could potentially tamper with crucial evidence linked to the crime. Yet, the journey for the detectives to unravel the mystery was far from over. The likelihood of Tami's demise seemed almost unquestionable, yet the lack of her remains continued to complicate the inquiry. As the search warrant was awaited, officers reached out to Tami's family and friends, but none had any information on her whereabouts. As Brad remained behind bars and Tami's whereabouts remained unknown, detectives approached their daughter Haylee at her school, completely unaware of the tragic situation unfolding around her mother.
Okay, tell me when you figured out your mom and dad were maybe having problems or...
Yeah, they told me they were getting a divorce.
Okay. Did they tell you why at all?
Because my mom doesn't love my dad anymore, and my dad's never home from work.
Did your mom and dad argue very much?
No.
No? Did they ever get physical with each other at all or hit each other at all?
No.
Any idea where your mom might have went at all?
No.
Okay.
At last, the search warrant for Brad's home had been approved. After searching the house thoroughly, detectives came up with two completely different scenarios. This meant that they couldn't connect the dots just yet. The vehicle parked in the garage was drenched in a significant amount of blood, yet the interior of the house appeared eerily ordinary. Investigators held a strong belief that they would uncover comparable evidence within the residence. Yet, despite a thorough examination with luminol, no traces of blood were discovered anywhere in the house. The blood discovered in the vehicle was submitted for DNA analysis. Yet, investigators grappled with a troubling uncertainty about whether they had apprehended the correct suspect. Investigators delved into Brad's assertion regarding his interaction with a police officer on the night he trailed Tami in her vehicle. Ultimately, the footage from a patrolling officer's dash cam validated his story.
Tami's Durango was a great point of interest that gets processed.
They seized that Durango immediately to take a sample of that blood and see if it matches Tami, to look for fingerprints in the blood, to look for a murder weapon that might be in there.
Then we go inside the home, We figure if there's that much blood in the Durango, that there's got to be some type of evidence of murder inside the home.
The detectives walked through the house. They couldn't believe it. There were no obvious signs in the home of a struggle, no blood trail.
We're not finding any evidence.
I wanted luminol tested on that bedroom. No blood. I had that mattress microscopically examined. It didn't have any blood on it. And so they were convinced it didn't happen in the house.
Brad said he was stopped by the trooper about 1:30 or so in the morning.
We come to find out that Brad had, in fact, been telling the truth, and that he did come in contact with a highway patrol trooper, and the interaction was caught on dash cam.
What's your name? Brad Reay, or E-A-Y? Do you have any ID with you at all? No, I must have ran to the store real quick.
The first obvious question is, do we really have the right guy?
This evidence had aided Brad, but the detectives needed to reconsider if they had apprehended the correct suspect. They swiftly approached the second potential suspect, Brian Clark, who had reported Tammy's disappearance, to engage in a formal discussion. Brian, a man bound by marriage, found himself in a web of suspicion as Tammy's willingness to leave her husband for him raised unsettling questions. His potential motives to silence her in a desperate bid to preserve his relationship loomed large, casting a shadow over his intentions. Brian entered the interrogation room ready to recount his movements to the detectives. He recounted that he had encountered Tammy the day prior, on February 7, 2006, in a motel room where they shared an intimate moment together. Following that, Brian claimed he had taken Tammy back to her residence before heading home, where he then spent the night with his wife.
At the police station, Brian did show up with his attorney. This was something certainly unexpected.
They questioned him very closely about his whereabouts the night she went missing. He indicated that he had been with Tammy February 7, 2006. They had gone to a motel. He dropped Tammy off at 5 o'clock and went home to his wife.
The story Brian gave investigators obviously differed from Brad's version of the previous evening, where Tammy had come home, been with somebody, presumably Brian, and then had left with him. And that was the last that he had seen her.
Brian's account was entirely distinct from the information that Brad had provided to the officers. To verify Brian's account, the authorities reached out to his wife to verify his alibi. Unknown to her, his wife remained completely in the dark about Brian's secret relationship. She learned the unsettling reality of Brian's betrayal, yet she affirmed that Brian was indeed at home on February 7th. However, while she verified Brian's location, she mentioned that she had spent the previous night on the recliner instead of in the bedroom, a choice she frequently makes when experiencing neck pain. This would have enabled Brian to step outside his home once more, yet there was no means to delve deeper into the truth of his narrative. Brian stood as a key suspect alongside Brad, adding layers of complexity to the unfolding investigation. If Brian was indeed implicated in the crime, it suggests he returned to Brad's house to stash the blood-stained Durango following Tammy's murder. If this were the case, it would suggest that Brian had cunningly attempted to implicate Brad by placing blood in the vehicle. What began as a simple missing persons case had gradually transformed into a complex puzzle, and only external assistance could breathe new life into the investigation at this point. Nearly 2 days had passed since Tammy vanished without a trace. As investigators remained in the dark regarding both the crime and the culprit, the DNA analysis results for the blood discovered in the Durango finally arrived. The presence of Tammy's blood left little doubt. It strongly suggested, wherever she might be, she was probably no longer alive.
We need to find Tammy and figure out where she is. It's tough to work a murder investigation without a body. We've got firemen, we've got law enforcement training cadets out combing the hillsides, the river breaks.
About sunset on the 9th, a helicopter was flying over the area north of town up by the hydroelectric dam. and one of the guys in the helicopter spotted what he thought was a body.
Lo and behold, it was Tami.
For the last 2 days, detectives and the search team have scoured every possible location, both within the city and beyond, in the relentless pursuit of the missing woman. After thorough aerial searches meticulously scoured the city, the relentless efforts of the team ultimately yielded results. On February 10, 2006, a police officer hovering over the outskirts, approximately 15 miles north of the city, detected a small but alarming scene of devastation on the ground that confirmed their worst fears. A motionless figure was discovered exposed in the vast expanses surrounding the renowned O hydraulic dam. Investigators quickly confirmed the identity of the deceased as Tami. She suffered multiple stab wounds across her body, depicted in a manner that suggested a deliberate act of humiliation. The remains were dispatched for examination. The revelation of Tami's body marked a significant turning point for the investigators, who had been navigating through the case with little direction until that moment. In a heart-wrenching moment, young Haylee, who longed to reunite with her parents, received the devastating news of her mother's tragic passing.
You're gonna have to help me with this, because this is gonna be tough for me too. I got little kids at home too, so we believe that your mom's dead. There's no easy way that I could tell you that, sweetheart. Okay? Right now, your dad has been arrested for her murder.
It didn't feel real. It felt like I was actually in a TV show.
I promised Haylee that if there was anything at all that I could do to help her through this thing, that all she needed to do was call me.
The autopsy findings disclosed that Tami endured 37 knife wounds, with several injuries to her chest, indicating that the blade had been driven deep to the hilt. A significant number of stabs were delivered post-mortem, yet there were no indications of any physical attack before the homicide. Investigators set a major focus on the remains in hopes of uncovering vital information about the murderer, yet the evidence remained silent, leaving the detectives to start their search again. With each passing day, the pressure mounted for the detectives, who were increasingly aware that time was slipping away as they struggled to find concrete evidence to justify keeping Brad behind bars. The detectives focused their efforts on uncovering the location of Tami's murder, convinced that this site held the key to crucial evidence. After over a month of relentless investigation, detectives finally encountered a shocking twist that intertwined crucial elements of the murder case, leaving them struggling. An anonymous letter arrived at the hands of the investigating officers, written by an individual claiming he held the key to the truth behind the murder.
Our office received a letter in the mail purported to be written by a cousin of Brian Clark. Brad was in jail. All of Brad's mail and communications were monitored. Do we really have the right guy? We need to go back and reconsider whether Brian Clark is actually the killer.
It's assumed that this chilling letter, written by a cousin of Brian Clark, the boyfriend, clearly describes the unsettling events of the night Tami vanished. He wrote, "On the evening of February 8th, Brian arrived in a black Durango and was covered in blood. Brian and Tami met at a hotel in the evening and then went their separate ways. In the stillness of the night, Brian found himself once more on his way to collect Tami from her residence. They ventured to a private location and engaged in intimate relations. Tami had requested that Brian take precautions, to which he responded with a disrespectful comment regarding her marriage. Before long, the discussion escalated into a fierce confrontation. Tami threw a torrent of curses at Brian, provoking him to retaliate in fury. Brian's aggression escalated towards Tami, ending in a physical attack that revealed his increasingly violent nature. He relentlessly plunged the knife into Tami. Again and again, as she attempted to escape, Brian plunged the knife into her back 5 times. Brian made sure Tami took her last breath, then threw her body where it was found after wrapping it in a sheet. The letter recounted events that were exclusively known to the killer or a close acquaintance of the killer. However, there was one specific detail referenced in the letter that astonished the detectives and prompted them to reevaluate everything. It was revealed in the letter that Tami had been assaulted before her murder and that Brian had lost a condom in her rectum. No evidence of violence or any contraceptive were discovered in her remains during the examination. As the letter claimed the presence of this evidence, it could not go unnoticed, prompting the detectives to carry out a rare act in the hopes of filling a regular bag of evidence. A second autopsy was conducted on Tami's body, and the findings left everyone in shock. It was verified that a condom was indeed found within the body. This startling revelation placed clear blame on Brian Clark. The forensic team scrutinized the condom for any traces of DNA, but the prolonged exposure to bodily acids destroyed potential genetic material. As a result, the examiners were unable to definitively link it to Brian's DNA. However, the assertions made in the letter did not fall on deaf ears. The unexpected appearance of the letter haunted the detectives for nights on end, ultimately illuminating a hidden route to the murderer, dramatically shifting the entire investigation. As the investigators meticulously examined the letter time and again, a striking intuition suddenly struck them. They remembered an especially odd remark made by their initial suspect, Brad Ray. The detective returned to the intense questioning session with Brad.
I'm hoping that the body is found because there'll be something to set me free. Like DNA and stuff like that.
The discovery of the condom during the autopsy seemed to implicate Brian directly, yet the letter revealed an unforeseen detail that took everyone by surprise. Brad insisted he had no idea who Tami was seeing.
That never crossed your mind? That's the first thing I'd be asking.
It crossed my mind, but
why didn't you ask her?
I didn't want to know.
You didn't want to know?
Yeah, I gotta believe that you're leaving out a lot of this conversation. Doesn't matter how laid back of a guy you are.
We never fought ever.
You never fought ever.
And we've always treated each other with respect.
This statement by Brad unleashed a wave of uncertainty in the room. As Brad spoke of the body as a means to freedom, an unsettling doubt began to swirl in the air around him. Investigators returned to Brad's residence, meticulously searching for any evidence that might link him to Brian. In this instance, there was certainly something lurking within the house, ready to be uncovered. Investigators unearthed a tiny audio recording device hidden away in Brad's closet. This was more than a mere hint. It was the definitive evidence that revealed they were dealing with a clever murderer.
It's just me. I just needed to hear your voice because Brad left me a long note in my car. It's making it really hard because he just doesn't understand. Well, I just had to hear your voice. I love you very, very much.
This is Tami, captured during a conversation with Brian following the moment when Brad surprised her with a bouquet and a heartfelt love note left in her car.
You might know what's around, but I don't know. We'll have to be careful. Brad might know what to do, so we need to be more careful. So, can't call me at home or do any of that, all right?
As the tape was rewound to the beginning, a new voice captivated the detectives, beginning to piece together the puzzle.
Brad wanted to know who the boyfriend was, and so he came up with a scheme. And the scheme was to go to Tami's car while she's in at work at Kmart, put flowers and a love letter in there, and a digital recorder, voice activated. He hoped to catch Tami calling the boyfriend so that he could find out who is the boyfriend. Tami walked right into that trap.
Because Brad left me a long note in my car. Well, I just had to hear your voice. I love you very, very much.
The recorder was pretty huge. because we catch Brad in a lie at that point.
Brad knew who the boyfriend was, even though he had told the detectives he didn't know.
In an unexpected twist, the voice captured was none other than Brad's, attempting to document his thoughts. It was revealed that at a certain moment, Brad had covertly placed a recorder near Tami. He found himself ensnared in an elaborate deception. The tapes served as undeniable evidence that Brad was aware Tami was involved with a man named Brian Clark. Before Tami's tragic end, Brad had experimented with the recorder, pretending to be both Tami and her partner. Content with the clarity of the recording, Brad discreetly placed a bouquet and a heartfelt note in Tami's car, ensuring the audio device was clearly concealed within. Brad was curious about Tami's romantic life, and under the influence of his scheme, Tami reached out to Brian immediately after witnessing Brad's unusual display of affection. Investigators were certain that a sinister scheme was unfolding. Despite Brad being in jail, the arrival of the letter posed a perplexing mystery that haunted the detectives, leaving them restless in the dark hours of the night. If Brad had been imprisoned all this time, then the question emerged: who could have possibly sent it? Investigators found themselves compelled to delve further into Brad's actions while in prison. Investigators captured his phone conversations and scrutinized his visitation logs while he was incarcerated. Amidst the unremarkable records, one of Brad's frequent visitors stood out, drawing intrigue. It was revealed that Brad had a twin brother, Brett, who shared his life in ways no one could have anticipated. Investigators observed that Brad had been engaging in frequent meetings with his twin brother over the last month. What appeared to be a simple gathering of family members was, in reality, a chilling indication of deeper, darker secrets lurking beneath the surface. Just one day prior to the arrival of the letter, Brett visited Brad in prison.
Brett did come to see Brad at the jail. The jail at the time didn't have video recording in the meeting rooms.
They put a search warrant on Brett, and when they searched Brett's car, they got the shock of a lifetime. We found the template frame letter.
Brett was able to tell us that Brad asked him to write down everything and directed that it be sent out.
Due to the absence of video surveillance in the meeting rooms, detectives sought out Brett for interrogation. During the intense interrogation, detectives uncovered a crucial piece of evidence in his vehicle that ultimately led to the resolution of the case. The officers discovered a yellow notepad inside the vehicle, and within its pages, they uncovered a text that closely mirrored the contents of the letter they had received. Brett ultimately admitted that his brother had recounted the letter to him in precise detail while in prison, requesting that 4 copies be sent to the investigators. The letter was a meticulously crafted scheme by Brad, which narrowly missed its original objective. The intricate scheme was meticulously unraveled to its essence following the intense questioning of Brett. In a series of letters exchanged between Brad and Brett during his time behind bars, it was revealed that Brad had included a hand-drawn map of a fishing location, an act that raised eyebrows for someone desperately trying to navigate the harsh realities of prison life. The map ultimately guided the detectives to a real fishing location in Pierre City. At that moment, the mystery surrounding Tami's murder reached its tragic conclusion, leaving the search team and detectives reeling from a devastating revelation.
A search and rescue officer out of Watertown discovered 3 bags full of bloody bedding. I'll never forget that day. We went out to open those 3 bags, and out came pillows, shams, blankets, and a tarp.
That blood was sent to the DNA lab.
And when the results came back, our worst fears were confirmed that it was Tami's blood.
Now we absolutely could prove where the crime took place. It took place in Brad's house.
Amidst the bushes, investigators uncovered 3 large trash bags. Bed sheets, blankets, a pair of panties, and a large tarp, all soaked in blood, were discovered within the bags. DNA testing was conducted on the blood discovered on these garments. The revelation brought a devastating conclusion to every lingering inquiry. Every drop belonged to Tami. Brad faced formal charges for the first-degree murder of his wife. The manager transformed into a killer. Brad's demeanor masked the chilling reality of the cold-blooded murderer lurking within. At 47, Brad Reay, a manager at Walmart, meticulously planned what he believed to be an ideal crime against his wife. In early February 2006, Tami opened up about her emotions regarding her impending divorce and her relationship with another man. Just a week later, Tami met a tragic end. Brad harbored within him profound emotions of revenge and jealousy, so intense that they began to manifest in a lethal form. In a calculated move, Brad sets the stage to uncover the truth about Tami's lover. He meticulously placed the audio recorder in her car, all while diverting her attention with a bouquet and a heartfelt "I love you" note.
Because Brad left me a long note in my car. Well, just how to hear your voice. I love you very, very much.
Brad understood that Tami would reach out to her secret partner upon discovering the note. When Brian Clark's name surfaced, Brad began to shadow the couple's private encounters, often taking place in Brian's truck. What transpired next was something that no one could have ever foreseen. In a chilling moment, Brad managed to retrieve a discarded condom that Brian had carelessly tossed from the truck. After Brad obtained Brian's condom, he proceeded to carry out his ultimate plan, which was to eliminate Tami. On the evening of February 7, 2006, just before Tami closed her eyes for the night, Brad had meticulously arranged a deathbed.
Brad had put a tarp underneath the bedding in Tami's bedroom prior to the time she went to bed that night.
Brad put several blankets over the tarp and then put the fitted sheet and then the rest of the bedding so that Tami would not know she was sleeping on a tarp. He went in and stabbed her to death through the blankets, and as he would pull the knife back out, the blanket would clean the blade, and consequently you did not have the usual blood spatter pattern that you might see in any other situation.
He was able to roll up Tami, the bedding, and everything in a tarp and take it out to the Durango, and that's how he managed to get her out of the house.
Following the brutal attack on Tami, where she was stabbed 37 times, Brad proceeded to wrap her in a tarp, transport her body to the Durango, and drive 15 miles north of the city, arriving near O Dam. After disposing of the body, Brad stripped her clothes to create the illusion of an assault, then proceeded with what he believed was the most critical aspect of his scheme. He placed Brian's condom in her rectum, leaving it for the detectives to discover later. The man planned to set up Brian Clark, ensuring his escape from the consequences. Unfortunately for Brad, he concealed the condom so effectively that it went unnoticed during the initial autopsy. Upon discovering that the police had failed to locate the condom, Brad arranged another scheme with his brother, instructing him to dispatch letters to the detectives. Brad faced a conviction for the murder of his wife, and the case was set to unfold in front of a judge. In January 2007, the trials began for the murder of Tami Reay, revealing a shocking twist that would further complicate the case. Brad, when presented in front of the judge, acknowledged that Tami's murder occurred in his residence, yet he claimed it was actually carried out.
Brad told the jury he heard some noise in the middle of the night. He went downstairs to Tami's bedroom, and there was Haylee standing over her mother with knife in hand. He claimed that Haylee was in some sort of a catatonic state and that she had killed her mother and didn't even know it. Brad claimed to protect Haylee, he wrapped up Tami's body and went to hide it.
It revealed that Haylee remained in her catatonic state until he had meticulously cleaned all the blood from her and offered her solace.
He said I used to stab my teddy bears and always had problems. And I was mad that my mom wanted a divorce. Not only did I lose my mom, I lost my dad, and now he's gonna blame me so that he can get free. It was hard.
Brad backed up his assertion by stating that he and Tami had informed Haylee of their impending divorce a few days prior, and that she had expressed her distress towards her mother. Brad had once more flipped the investigation on its head with this assertion. However, it quickly became evident that this assertion was merely a desperate ploy for self-preservation. Brad attempted to shift the blame onto his 12-year-old daughter for the murder of her mother, claiming he was prepared to take the fall and serve time for Haylee. The trials were extended for a while, but ultimately the allegations were revealed to be just another fabrication from Brad. Haylee's grandparents, the prosecutors, and the judge all denounced Brad's unsettling and manipulative tactics in trying to implicate his daughter after his failed attempt to frame Brian. On January 23, 2007, Brad faced the ultimate judgment, being found guilty of first-degree murder. At just 11 years old, Haylee was forced to confront a reality that no child should ever have to see. Yet, the depth of trauma she faced only fueled her strength. Haylee emerged as a strong young woman, dedicating her life to illuminating the harsh realities of domestic abuse.
I run a Facebook page in memory of my mom and has statistics and stuff about domestic violence. And then I travel to schools and speak about domestic violence.
In a revealing interview, Haylee opened up about the emotional difficulties of her life with her father.
He was very controlling, emotionally abusive. Like, whatever my mom did, he had to be right there, every time, everywhere. So,
just had to always be with her?
Yes,
and
right next to her.
And did he try to control what she did?
Well, he was always working, but when he did come home, he had to be right there. And if we did go somewhere, he would just show up.
On February 18, 2024, Brad Reay passed away in prison, leaving the circumstances surrounding his death shrouded in mystery. After being convicted, Brad appealed to the Supreme Court. He defended himself by accusing the authorities of improperly preserving the DNA evidence, which he believed would have saved his life. Brad Reay tried everything to prove his innocence. What was his biggest mistake that got him convicted? Please share your thoughts in the comment. We hope to hear from you. Leave suggestions for cases we should cover. Please like, share, and subscribe to Behind the Crime for more captivating true stories like this.